know, as an old vaudevillian, I learned you never follow kids, dogs, or Shelly Palmer. So we're gonna have to figure that out. But let's give it a shot. First of all, Jeffrey and May, thank you for joining us this morning. I want to dive right in because we've had enough preamble. Jeffrey, from the perspective of a, and please don't take this in the pejorative sense, pioneer in entertainment. And I know we talked the other day about pioneer, does that mean old? In this case, it doesn't. It means special.
The line is that you can always tell who the pioneers are. They're the ones with the arrows in their back.
Yeah, exactly. But remember, the postscript to that was the pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land. What I think you are is a pioneer who got some land as well, so I think it worked out.
Which is on fire right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. By the way, a thought for everybody that's going through what they're going through in Southern California, which is extraordinarily.
My daughter's evacuated from Brentwood. I have a home out on the beach that literally, I just saw a video of a house 4 doors down that's on fire. I mean,
it's frightening,
crazy.
And we really should take a moment. But look, from your perspective, Jeffrey, what's the single most exciting way that you think AI is shaping the future of creativity and media? Big question, but in terms of cost, large-scale production, et cetera.
Well, I think the tricky part about this is, as Shelly well demonstrated here, we are at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. And so to sit here today and try and look out around a corner, let alone over a horizon, I think is a difficult, if not impossible thing. But if I try to use my imagination, and I have to couch this in that I have a bottomless well of optimism, and so I'm sure there are people that have the other side of that, and I hope for and root for and rely on them to be a good counterbalance in this, to make sure we don't drive ourselves off a cliff, but rather, soar into new highs. But I will just tell you, the first day I arrived at the Walt Disney Studio in 1984, I had been in the live action movie business for 10, 11 years. I'd worked for Barry Diller at Paramount, made me president of the studio when I was 30 years old, which is insane when you think about it today. And I arrived with Michael Eisner on my first day, and I met with him early in the morning and sort of had my little buck slip with my to-dos on this. And when the meeting was over, and it was like, here are the things I need to get to do and get focused on and get alignment. And he and I were, sort of in perfect sync here. And I got up and I was leaving, and I was literally at the door about to leave the office. And he said, Jeffrey, one last thing before you leave. I said, what's that? He said, come over here. I want to show you something. And Michael was in Walt Disney's office, which is a corner office in the sort of central building there. And he said, you see that building over there? I went, yeah. He says, well, do you know what they do there? I went, no, I have no idea. He said, well, that's where they make the animated movies. I said, that's nice. He said, yes, it's nice. It's also your problem. That was my introduction to animation. Now, here's the pertinent fact here. In that building that housed the ink and paint department, the ink and paint department at the time was between 150 and 200 artists, mostly women, who painted animation cells by hand. The first sort of big movie that we made, The Little Mermaid, every cell of that movie was hand painted. Now, leap to where we are today, and by the way, the limitations, if you look at the color palette of the movie of The Little Mermaid, I think there were like about 120 or 125 colors. And so remember, you have to be consistent from beginning to end of the movie. So the color of the ocean or of Ariel's hair was a very specific, and there's a giant bottle of paint that they had to use over the 2 years of inking and painting this. Today, you make any film, and so we were limited by literal, the physical limitations of that. Today, if you look at any of the great CG animated movies, the color palette is thousands thousands of paint colors. So the complexity and the density and the beauty of it is just so gigantically enhanced. I only give that to you as saying, here's dinosaur Jeffrey and the sort of evolution of that I went through over it, and today that's only going to be accelerated. Now, I'll just come back and just say, because this is the question that is on everybody's mind. And so today, when you make a movie, there's a writer, there's a cinematographer, there's a production designer, and I could go on. There's the director. I can go on with a list of functions. And today...
I've always wanted to be the best boy.
Right. Well, you... Okay, I'll leave that. Those jobs are going to still exist, and there are going to be expertise in each and every one of them. And the word that is at the tip of everybody's tongue is prompting. So if you're going to be a production designer for something, there's still a creative process that is going to be required at the core of this. Does it take as many people to produce that? No, but the diversity and variety of things that will be produced, the democratization of these tools. If you think that what we've seen in social media and with the sort of explosion of the creator economy and the influencer economy, it's about to go on steroids. And there are so many wonderful and great creative things that have come out of that none of us would have imagined 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30. So buckle up. It's coming. It's a tsunami of change and creativity and new opportunities.
Well, speaking of that, and speaking of tools, and that was a drop the mic moment.
Anything I
sure.
say from here on in is I'm sure get myself in trouble.
There you go. May, when we first met, Ryder was really starting in the content generation business, effectively. That's how I remember it being described to me. You've evolved, obviously, materially, and basically now you're empowering enterprises with workflow automation, knowledge management, asset management, and a lot more. How has AI changed the way businesses can approach operational efficiency and the role that Ryder and the news continues to position you appropriately as a leader in this space. So
thank you, Michael.
Would love your thoughts.
I think the story of Ryder is the story of the transformer. And what we have had to do to reinvent ourselves as a company over the past 4 years of serving the enterprise in AI, and our customers are United Healthcare and Accenture and Salesforce and Uber and Intuit and the real leaders of internal use of generative AI. What we've had to do to basically rebuild our go-to-market, rebuild our product with every big step function change in the capabilities of the transformer is an amazing analogy for what you all have to do to recreate your workflows AI first. And for this audience, what I would be remiss if we left here not telling you, right? We literally have hundreds of meetings a week with top enterprise leaders, top CIOs. You have to be in the driver's seat. If I rank the success of our generative AI programs from Goldman Sachs to Franklin Templeton to Kenvue to L'Oreal to Mars, it is the partnership of the chief digital, the chief marketing officers with their CIOs, right, that actually get the change. If you allow yourself to be a passenger in this transformation instead of a driver, your companies are not going to be able to do what you all need to do. And so for us, what we have done is build a platform that allows executives, right, and your big functions across the company to think about every workflow. I loved what you said, Shelly, because it is not about the LLM. Do not get into analysis paralysis. Model gardens are model museums. The most impactful thing you can be doing is figuring out what is worth doing. What is creative, what is execution, right? And you gotta automate the hell out of all of the execution.
Explain the difference between managed AI and the open field?
Yeah,
What you,
great question. So let's take a super automation. I love that, Shelly. At Salesforce, they're a great customer. Anyone from Salesforce here? You guys have got to talk to them. So I'm happy to introduce you to Ariel Kelman's team and what they're doing. Let's take a agentic workflow that they're working on. Being able to take a thought leadership piece or a blog post that somebody is working on and be able to search the whole canon, right, of everything they've published before while that human works on a piece, right? AI is already better than your mediocre employee. So anybody who doesn't fully internalize that, like, gotta be able to understand that. We're about now 10xing your best people. And the way you 10x your best people is giving them all of the information at their fingertips, right? This is the real kind of automation, the integration of AI with your best people. So they're working on a post, and they're able to query everything they've written on that topic, right? Mark Benioff challenged the team to basically launch Agentforce in a single month, and they used Writer to help launch Agentforce. So imagine all of the product launches, all of the writing you got to do, all of the marketing that you got to do for a launch like that. They used Writer for it. And if you are automating something like querying everything you've published on agentic AI, everything that's internal, right, that you've already built from product marketing on this, and then automating literally by chatting to Writer, how you get that into WordPress, how you customize that into ABM, how you personalize that, you have really reinvented, right, this entire workflow. And that's the difference.
Let me ask a question there, because you talked about the constituency around the table, and this is something that I focused on for years, and it was with Salesforce actually, the merging, if you will, of the CIO and the CMO. Because, you know, the way we used to joke about it was the person with the pocket protector is now the same as the person with the pocket square. And it, you know, you can look at it that way. But there's one person you left out of that because you're so involved in workflow management. The CFO is probably a constituent at that table as well, because there's an economic impact that is gigantic here. I mean, so I would guess the CFO is another person with the CTO and CMO at that.
Well, it is definitely a world of haves and have-nots, and I'll share a have story. We have customers, some of whom I've named already, who are seeing so much ROI. There is now politics on hiding that ROI from the CFO, because the CFO is going to go in and be like, all right, you're going to cut this agency now, you're going to cut that group, you're going to cut this headcount, right, and setting targets against that. We want to go in and help our executives figure out how you really accelerate and blow out and do the kind of stuff you couldn't do before, right? If you're a top healthcare payer in this country, right, you're using Writer to personalize care plans. You get a nurse or a clinician doing a home visit, you get to leave behind a care plan customized to that person. You couldn't do stuff like that, right, across millions of people before AI. When you focus on that, right, then you're able to take ROI metrics to a CFO that doesn't have you cutting a bunch of stuff.
So right now we're keeping it in the cupboard so we have it for...
That's the haves.
Exactly.
The have-nots have not been able to figure out how to build a business case to the CFO that gets them the tooling they need, right?
But it goes back to what I said earlier, I think. We don't even know the question yet.
I loved when you said that. And it's funny because, you know, literally the question is the prompt, right? People ask me how we use AI all the time, getting to this point. Yesterday, I was about to go to a dinner, and the team sent me a lookbook that had 300 faces in it. And I'm like, team, no. And I asked our EA to use Writer, right? I'm like, please do not go through 300 people manually, Carissa. And she wrote a little program in Writer. This is how do you ask the right question. And she connected the app she built to Salesforce. You can do that in Writer. And she was able to automate a ping to Slack that gave me the 12 customers who are at the event, the other 15 opportunities that we are talking to already, all the execs I should meet, and the details of what we're talking to them about. And it literally would have taken her 5 to 6 hours, to Shelly's point, to do that. But she didn't know to ask that question, right? And so there is a real change management that you guys have got to drive. You have to create more builders on your teams. And the definition of who can become a builder, she literally wrote a software program, right? The definition, she's going to be able to reuse that app. The definition of who is a builder is changing, and it's got to be the people in this room who drive that in your organizations, or it's just not going to happen.
So the thing I would add here, which is a dimension that I think is understated stating here. She doesn't undervalue it, she's understating it. And it's why we at WndrCo were so enamored and attracted to May early in her journey, is what she's doing is actually making better storytellers and better communicators. And that's the thing that I admire and appreciate and value so much about what Ryder does. Is not only can you have talk directly to a patient, but you can do it in a way that has character and emotion. And storytelling, which is maybe why, I found my transition from storytelling in Hollywood to storytelling in venture, is every business is in the storytelling business, every single business. And whether you are having to tell that story to a handful of executives as you share your vision and your idea for your company when you were just starting out and you need other people, whether it's to investors to invest in it, right now you have to tell your story to customers, to clients, to companies that you're trying to do. And you just take that, storytelling is just an essential ingredient in what we all do every day. And what Ryder does is it makes better storytellers out of all of us. And that's just invaluable.
Well, first of all, we are out of time, and I know everybody would share this. We could keep going for for hours, but Jeffrey, May, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you both.